My name is Dennis Riggs, and I'm the CEO here at Promotional Spring. And today I'm here with my dad, Wade Riggs. And we're here to talk a little bit more about that we're turning 70 this year. And so, obviously, Dad, the business started 1955. Don McCabe started the company, and essentially it was a garage shop, right?
Right.
So, very thankful to Don for getting us started way back in the day. Before my day, obviously. Um, but just tell me a little bit more about. So you bought the company in 1984, and I was a kid, and I actually worked here, but I was 9 years old, and I know you had worked in the business my whole life. So I guess what led you to the point of buying what was then Mound Printing in 1984?
Well, I'd been in printing for a long time, many years really, and I saw firsthand that companies did not take care of their employees. Companies did not take care of their uh, work
Their customers as well, right?
customers, and so I made a decision many years before that someday I'd like to own my own business. Also, I wanted the opportunity to work with our people, uh, give them a good place to work. Really, what we wanted to do was just to make things better and easier.
Right, right. And so you started the company in '84. So, and if I remember right, I think Grandma and Grandpa, Mom's parents, they put up the financing, right?
Yeah,
So a second mortgage type of situation, right?
yeah,
And I think you paid that loan off pretty quickly. So you started the business, and it was you, Carol Ratliff, who's my sister, your daughter,
uh,
and she still works here today. A girl named Lori Goodpasser in the Virginia College, your mother, she kind of worked on on the bookkeeping side of things,
right.
right? So 1984, you were over there on Benner Road, and basically it was just a detached garage. So how long were you guys there? Like maybe a year or two? You quickly outgrew it,
Probably close to two, but we outgrew it when we first moved in.
right?
Um, Don McCabe, the year before I bought it, he did $50,000. So I went in, and I think the first year that I owned it, we went up to like 300 and something $1,000
That first year,
because there were people, there were customers that I'd worked with in the previous place that I worked,
mm-hmm.
and they just followed me.
Yeah, and I remember hearing stories about that. They
Yeah,
just kind of sought you out and I think that's one thing we talk a lot about our culture is that, I think the one thing that you put into everybody here and put into our culture still is on the day is you take care of people. And
right,
right, obviously no one's perfect, but at the same time, if you take care of people, whether that's a customer, right, or your employees, or even the company delivering paper to you, right? I mean,
right,
that it pays off in the end,
sure.
right? Right. And I know you've always felt strongly about that. Fast forward to 1985, you moved the business over to Dixie Drive in West Carrollton, and I feel like that was the business really began to grow. But anything else that you remember about that time?
Well, I started buying a little bit of equipment,
Yep.
and that was always scary. But the equipment that I wound up with when I first started it wasn't very good. Um, but my main theme from day one was not only take good care of the customers, give them what they needed at a fair price, but the people that worked with us, they were family. Even though some of them weren't family, they were still family, and that's what I always went for.
And you mentioned here, you started to buy equipment. I mean, I think reinvestment has been a big theme in our company, right? I mean,
Right.
over the years. I mean, so we move on there from Dixie, and we move over to Gargrave, and we were over there several years,
Yeah.
and that's when I showed up full time,
Hmm.
right? So we were there into the mid '90s. I took I started working for you full time in '93 when I graduated high school, and then throughout those 4 years when I was going to Wright State.
Right.
But I look back and I think about some of the big events in the company. As you remember, that's when we first invested in. At the time, it was electronic prepress. And at the time, that was the biggest investment we'd ever made.
That's right.
Yeah, so I know we had a lot of discussion about it, and I think I was curious. started to see the manual things we were doing, and kind of ask the question that you've always asked: is there a better way,
Yeah.
right? And figured out we could do things electronically and sort of in an automated fashion, things that we could never thought we could do before, right?
And that
So
was the problem we got into. Technology. Um, I always felt like if I could oil it and grease it and adjust it, it'd be okay. But
yeah.
then you came through that technology and you scared me.
But I think looking back too, I've had a lot of people ask me, and I know that that's you always say things like that, but the truth is you've always been about automating. You've always been about making things better, and I think you were always a believer in that. But people ask me, hey, what does your dad think about that, or that kind of investment or whatever? And I said, well, he's a good businessman, and he understands that that if there's a better way and we can be more automated and we can tell our customer more yes more often,
Mm.
that was those became pretty easy investments, right? So
Yeah, and then that along with that, when we would increase our equipment or buy different equipment, it just made things happen better. We could
hmm
take care of our customer better, make life easier on us internally.
right,
So,
right. And I think looking back, I mean, the business has changed a lot, right?
oh yeah,
It's changed a lot, and things that used to take weeks if not months are now expected in days if not hours. And I think that's been a hallmark of our investment, is that's allowed us to be able to move at the speed of how businesses change,
right,
right?
yeah,
So um, fast forward into the mid 90s, we moved over there on Lyons Road. And I feel like looking back, that was when I was finishing up college. I think we moved right when in the middle of my time at Wright State there. Um, but I think what I remember most about that time is we began to serve some larger national accounts.
right, yeah,
But just I look back and I think about the relationships that we formed, right? And even the national accounts that we serve today, they have, a lot of those relationships we formed there in the early 90s, they've continued to feed us business even to this day, right?
yeah, still to this day,
And I can remember, I got a friend, a dear friend who was a client, and she single-handedly pushed us, I think, into a lot of our bigger lines of business today. That'd be fulfillment, right? You
right,
remember we had to do it. We had to do a kit, and we had to buy a skid of popcorn, microwave popcorn for
yes,
somebody.
yeah,
Snuck up the shop for about a week. But so I think that was a big move for us. And then the other big thing was e-commerce. So 1999, and I don't know if you remember this, but that's when looking back, that's actually when we began to sell online.
mm, I
So
remember that,
so really, and up until this point in time, we had leased the spaces that we were in, right?
right,
And you and I had always talked about trying to buy a place, right?
right,
So fast forward to where we are today, here on Bellevue Road. We built the building in 2003, and I remember, gosh, we quickly outgrew it, didn't we?
about
Uh,
2 years, really,
18 months. I,
yeah.
18. I looked back the other day; it's 18 months. And so, you want to talk a little bit about that time and what caused us to outgrow it, or what we were doing, outside of the building there for.
We've always been a printer,
Yep.
but there's different divisions of printing that you don't even think about. And one of them's kitting and fulfillment. Well, we would have these big, large kits come in, and we'd have to work on them out in the parking
In the
lot.
parking lot, right?
And then if it started to rain, which it did every little bit, everybody had to go gung ho, put everything back inside. So that was one reason we decided to go ahead and add on, which we did.
Yep.
It seemed like every time we do something like that, more business comes in.
Yep. We've been blessed in that
Right.
sense, haven't we?
And then now the second building, uh, I mean, it's just amazing. There's really 40,000 square feet available, and we're using the vast majority of it.
Right. Right. So just to speak to that a little bit, so we added on 18 months later, and then so that was 2004, 2005, and then another big thing happened about that time is we put in a very large sheet fed press.
Yes.
And that really revolutionized our business, right?
Yes.
Because I look back and I think about it up until that time. I think we always had the pre-press, and we had, we were doing things with MIS and estimating systems, and we were very ahead of our time, if you
Hmm.
remember, right? But putting in that press, we allowed us to bring in some other salespeople, right, as well. Couple guy that now retired, Bill Strader. But that really put us on the map.
It
And
did.
and I think that, and I look back and I think about how we grew into these national accounts. That was sort of the flagship. That was that starting point, right?
It was. And that was purchased on a trip in Chicago.
Yep.
And if I remember right, I told you I'd never go to Chicago with you again.
So that was literally, that ended up, that was a 2 a.m. deal in a hotel in the north side of
Yeah.
Chicago. But yeah, so that was another one of those watershed moments. Um, so there again, mid 2004, 2005, and then we get up to like 2010, and we had 26,000 square feet. Began to outgrow that space. We'd always had some offsite warehouses and things like
Yeah.
that.
Mm.
And the company that built this building that we're in today, built the main building. They also own the other building behind us.
Right.
So right, so we signed a long term lease at the time. Built a road between the two buildings. Remember
Mm.
going through all that stuff.
Oh, yes.
So 2016. So from 1955 to 2016, we were known as Mound Printing.
Right.
2016, we rebranded, and that was another one of those situations where people were like, "Man, what's your dad think about this?" And but 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 the truth of the matter is, who had been saying for years that we
Yeah.
needed to change our name?
Right.
You,
Yeah.
right? Um, and um, and I look back at that time. We became Promotional Spring, and the idea was we do a lot of work with retail, but we're really here to help promote your business,
Right.
whatever that business is, and however we can help grow you or make you more efficient or make you more effective. That's ultimately what we do, right? We take care of people by doing those things,
That's right.
right? Just looking back on that, I mean, how do you feel like that went for us, and how do you feel like that's fueled our growth in the last nine
I
years?
think it's gone real good. And we just had to get the name printing out of it. I mean, printing is wonderful, but printing is just a small piece of the puzzle anymore.
Right,
Kitting, fulfillment, large format. Um, we do it all. And so the customers know that now.
right.
Now, some of our old customers, they refuse to call it promotional spring.
Spring, still call it Mound Printing,
Mountain printing.
right?
So, whatever they want to call it, just so they call it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So to your point, I think that one of the things that's happened to us over the years is we've you mentioned fulfillment. You mentioned wide format. So like the
Yeah.
environmental graphics and things we do for retail environments. We also added direct mail.
Yeah.
I famously said we would never go into direct mail, but direct mail is a big part of our business today,
Right.
right? Um, Recently, I had promotional products. And I think sort of, and I wish I could take more credit for it, but we've kind of built a synergistic business where all these things that we do, they kind of feed off of one another,
Right.
right?
Bottom line, all of our investment has been for customer service.
Take care of people, right?
Right.
And those are people, yeah. Because famously, I talked about the one customer earlier who kind of pushed me into e-commerce and fulfillment.
Mm-hmm.
We had another large client back in the day push us into direct mail, and that same large client eventually pushed us into wide format. But I think what I'm most proud of, and I think during our time together, you worked here full time to 2020, and now you're in and out sometimes. Um, but I'm just proud of our ability to figure it out,
Yeah.
as a team.
Right.
I think you talked about people early on. Our people today have carried on your legacy of taking care of customers and doing what's right and doing the right thing, and even when it hurts sometimes, right?
Right.
But I think the people have always been the fuel for Mound Printing and now Promotional Spring.
Right.
And then fast forward to 2024, and by now you're at home with mom, and doing what you want to do. I think most days, or some days anyway. We made another large investment, probably our largest capital investment since we bought our large sheet fed press back in 2004. Um, So I think that people will ask a lot of times, what would you do um, if you could start all over? And this was my best attempt to do that. I mean, so because we've experienced a lot of growth over the years, right? But we purchased a couple of large format digital presses, and then in the process of doing that, we're able to put our plant layout back the way we started this building
Yeah.
back in '04. So, and then I think the other big thing that's happened is um, late last year, and I talked to you about this, and you're one of the few people that knew about the beginning, but we acquired Oregon Printing. They merged with us
Right.
back in October. And that was an interesting experience, but so glad that it happened. Judd came over, and as a way of culture, his fit was very much how we treated people, how we treated customers. So anyway, so as I wrap it up here today, Dad, I guess you look back, it's been 70 years, and mainly, and really, it's been more like 40 for us, right?
Right.
But I guess what are the things that did you think that we end up where we are today?
No way. Absolutely no way.
Now, why is that?
Well, number one, the equipment that we've had to buy, it's not cheap. And we're just like Chicago. We went and bought that press. It was $1.2 million.
Yeah, and that was a lot of money at the
That
time,
scared the hell out of me.
right?
And like I said, I told you I'd never go back, and I didn't. But, and then the nice thing about it, the way our company is structured, there's not a lot of turnover.
Right.
And sometimes, quite often, somebody will think the grass is greener, and then they go and they find out it's not.
Right. But I think, Dad, I think your legacy here is the people part, right? And I
Right.
think, and there's other things. I mean, you've always worked hard. You put a lot of hard work into this company. You showed us what it looks like to work hard. But I think more than anything, you take care of people. I look back um, on my career, and I can remember somebody recently asked me. Um, they said, what, we were talking about sports, and they asked me, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I'm like, I wanted to be like my dad. So I sit here today, and I know it's not been easy at all times, has it? I mean,
No,
we've spent a lot of
never will be easy.
it's no, but nothing worth doing is. I think you did what you wanted to do, and I've always done what I've wanted to do, and
Hmm.
that's run this company. So
Yeah.
but I'm proud of what we did together, and I'm proud to carry on the legacy and just try to do right by our team and by our customers, and continue what we started. I mean, we're in a big um, push right now to grow the company, and I'm excited about that. And they're all different, but growing pains are painful nonetheless. But growing is the only way that we know,
Right.
right? I've talked a lot. I, you and I have talked a lot about that, right?
If you don't grow, eventually the doors will close.
That's right. So, all right. Well, thank you, Dad.
Yeah.
I'm Dennis Riggs. I'm the CEO of Promotional Spring, and we are talking about our 70th anniversary. We just turned 70 this year, 2025, and we're talking about sort of watershed moments in the history of Promotional Spring. I'm here with Judd Plattenberg, and Judd, you were part of one of those watershed moments. So 2024, been about 8 or 9 months now, I
It
guess.
has been.
So Judd joined forces with us. He came over from Oregon Printing. Judd's a longtime owner, very well known in our local community. Um, and how long were you with Oregon, Judd?
I went to work there in 1983 and bought the place in 2000.
Okay,
And so it seems like my whole life was spent with Oregon and downtown in the community downtown.
right. So you came to a point, and I know you and I started talking about this whole merger possibility. What, 23, I
I
think.
think I think that was when we had our first discussion.
Yeah. So just kind of tell us, if you would, what led you to that point, and then and why Promotional Spring, because I know you had some opportunities.
We
And
had some different options. As I got older and everything, and we had added on to Oregon in I think 2013 or 14. So we used up all the property we had down there and built the building about as big as we could.
right.
And it just really became obvious to me that where this business is going, and this is more than a printing business anymore. It's a communications business. The equipment gets bigger and more
Mm-hmm.
expensive, and my options were to build a new building. I didn't want to do that. And I met with Dennis, and it was the right culture. I had talked to some other people in thinking that I need to expand my business because my customers' capabilities were getting beyond what we had.
Right.
We needed to grow our capability to keep up with our customers, and my customers deserve that. So I talked to some other people. I talked to Dennis, and right away it clicked. The culture was there. I think that we both were looking for the same thing for our
Yes.
customers and making the customer successful. It's about the customers. It's not about us. It's not about anybody but the customers and making them
And
successful. And
that
that's
takes care of everything, right?
yeah. That you take care of your customers, everything else is good.
And I think when you came over and we began to have those opportunities, you're right. It was all about culture.
Hmm.
And we had never gone through any kind of acquisition or anything like this in the past. But one thing I had always heard is, hey, try to find somebody who the culture is going to be a good fit. Now, obviously, we had different systems and different ways of doing
Sure.
things, and but many similarities. Probably more
More similarities
similarities.
than not, with the software and the equipment and
Yeah.
everything. One thing I felt it was pretty important to get on a company that had an Indigo platform
Mm-hmm.
because I think that's one of the leading platforms for printing in the industry.
Absolutely.
And you had an Indigo platform that was bigger and better than ours, and it fit right in.
I've just gotten more expensive bills, Judd. Um, so you've been here, like I said, it's been 8 or 9 months, and obviously we went through some growing pains and some transition pains, which are to be expected. But
Sure,
the thing that I've been so impressed with is how you work with clients and the creativity that you come to the table with, and I think that fits well with
it
with how
does.
we do things here too.
It does. There's a lot of creativity here. You've got a great team that has come up with some pretty creative solutions, and even though it's a little bit of a different approach, it seems to work well together.
Yeah.
And
So
I think it was good for both of us.
no, it was too, because I think the thing that was a little different is Promotional Spring. Historically, we've kind of done our work out of state,
Yeah.
and I know that you had this large sort of local footprint and turned me on to a lot of opportunities I didn't know were happening right here in our own backyard.
Well, I think that's another thing that made this call to marriage really successful is it gave you a footprint in Dayton, and has given a good solution for a lot of the people that have been customers of mine for 25, 45 years.
Right.
The other thing, though, was watching what you guys do on a national level was pretty amazing to
Hmm.
me. The fulfillment, the distribution, it's amazing to watch that at work too. So I
It's a
think when
little
you
crazy too.
it's a little crazy, but I think when you put the two of them together, there's a lot for both of us to learn and get better too. Because that was the other part of the culture I liked too, was the culture of continuous improvement here.
Right.
Um, we can always get better at what we're doing.
And Judd, and it's interesting too. And from an owner's perspective, you've done a great job. You've brought me some different ideas and different ways of thinking about things. Because as you know, we all have our blind spots. Just because
Oh
we own
yeah,
the company doesn't mean we know everything. But you brought in some great ideas, and the way you've approached that has been great. You came in, you fit in with our culture, the ideas and things to ways of improving things has really helped us, and it's helped me. Because, like I said, in our business, we get to
yeah,
be around peers and things like that, and there's a lot to be learned from somebody that's been in your shoes. So anyway, so we're ecstatic you made the
yeah.
decision to come here, Judd, and
Well,
looking forward to how we're going to
yeah.
grow. But one thing I will say is, as we look forward, I think we're talking about milestones and things that have happened in the last 7 years, and I think you coming on board is going to be a big one as we
Yeah.
look back.
And I do want to say, I'll give you a thank you right now for giving me the freedom to kind of operate and work with the people here and pan out some of my ideas and what I think are working too. And you've given me a lot of freedom to do that.
Well, and I trust you to do that. And I saw how successful you were, and you took your business, I think, to the next level. And from what I've seen in the last 10 or 15 years, and so hats off to you too.
Well, we took our business to where we wanted to be. I was very comfortable with that business, but the world's moving fast, and the world's moving fast, and this is the next level here that it all deserved to be at. So
Well, I appreciate that, and it's been exciting to get to know your customers, and very grateful for those folks making a choice to come over, and obviously it's a change for them too.
Yeah.
So, and we appreciate that, and but appreciate people. You know, you took a chance here, your clients have taken a chance, and we're grateful for all of that.
Well, I think it's worked out pretty good for everybody.
All right, thank you, Jed.
Great. Thanks, Dennis.